Hey, what's up, everybody? Hello, hello. I was working on some stuff and threw the stream together real quick. Looks like I have everything working, though. Might be a little offset with the camera angle. There we go. A little dark, but I don't mind that. What's up, CB? Dirty River, who's already talking about the derailleur. The How would you say that? Derailleur hangerless SRAM system. So, Jaybird, Pudgy, JMZ, Grand Subject, Large, Dr. Bob, Raymond. Um, yeah, with Dr. Bob's point, I think jump right in for anyone who just doesn't spend their days following bike stuff, which usually isn't people who are in this live stream. SRAM just announced their new. Uh, how do they frame it? Mountain bike components, right? You know, the Eagle stuff is their mountain bike line. I guess a flat bar line. I don't know. Mountain biking is not my most uh, followed thing, but you couldn't avoid this today, and it's really interesting because the tech that they've put out looks pretty incredible. If you just look at it on the face of what the tech, is, what it's doing, it's pretty incredible. If you don't worry about a lot of other issues, which I think I want to hear everyone's opinion on tonight. So, yeah. What's up, Whiskey? Austin, Tony, Tony, I have a question I need to remember to ask you later, or maybe I'll ask you now, but I won't remember. Is what you were talking about the video chat software you used was, because I didn't write it down and it was St. Patrick's Day. Bouncing Bike Life, what's up? How's it going? Asterific, always good to have you, Kyle. Yeah. Uh, Danny called it the SRAM unit. What's up, Muskrat? So, right off the bat, Large said UDH has been around a while, which is what you need to even have this new system, which is outside looking at the tech of this new SRAM system, which looks incredible. One of my first problems is only bikes that were made in 2019 or newer can take this SRAM system. And then, from what I understand, not even all of those, right? They have to have the UDH. And that's the one thing with reading some stuff and watching some videos I understand the least. So there's a specific, basically, part of the through axle in the dropouts that needed to be made a certain way for to be what is called UDH. If someone has like a real simple way to explain UDH in a comment, I would love to see it. But basically, this new SRAM rear derailleur, and we're talking one by here, Mountain Bike World. This new SRAM rear derailleur just mounts directly to your frame, basically through your quick axle through axle, but it needs to be UDH, which is the thing that I'm not sure I understand. So, William Paulson says he watched a dude jump on the top of the rear derailleur today, so you think he'll be fine. So, yeah, one thing I would say is I'm someone who just ripped a rear derailleur off my bike. And my bike has an integrated hanger, so the hanger is welded to the bike frame already. It bent that. My rear derailleur got completely destroyed. The hanger was able to be bent back, and I bought a new rear derailleur. Mine are 11-speed Shimano 105, so I can't remember what I spent, but it wasn't even $100 to get another 11-speed 105 rear derailleur, obviously mechanical. These new SRAM runs, there's 3 levels of Eagle, are about $600. So yes, they are kind of talking about this new design being very indestructible, but to Pudgy's point, a lot of times a derailleur hanger is what bends instead of your derailleur getting ruined or your frame getting ruined. So I know there's already people worried about, will this ruin my frame if it gets hung up and bent? But people have been showing how robust these derailleurs are, that they shouldn't break. They would bend first, like, are they push in? But that's another thing. If they don't and they're sturdy enough, does that bend the rear of your frame? Or does that break your carbon? I don't know. That's one of the concerns, just saying. So, So that's what Pudgy just said in his member chat. 25 months. Holy shit, Pudgy. But yeah, so he said, this is what Pudgy's saying. And there's a lot of, obviously, conversation as this stuff just came out today. So I'm not a huge fan of, like, I like to run Shimano, but I'm not a big mountain bike component guy. And almost everybody in the mountain bike world seems to like SRAM better. And I am fine with that. I understand. So I'm not going to, like, jump on that thing. I don't have the knowledge to say that I wouldn't like SRAM stuff, but SRAM just made it so, yeah, if you hit your derailleur on something, it costs you $500 instead of 15. So, what's up, grand subject? Eduardo, KM Car. So Austin said, what's the benefit? So right now, the marketing benefits are basically they have three, I'm saying marketing, because I've only watched one review that I think was non-biased, which is the one bikepacking.com came out with. So note the adjusting. So there's no, it's supposed to be really easy to adjust in the world of electronic group sets. You no longer have a high limiting screw and a low limiting screw. And if you don't know what those are, all your rear derailleurs right now probably have them. It keeps it from going off the top of the cassette, and it keeps it going off the bottom of the cassette. And there's no B limiter screw, which is how far your derailleur swings forward. So setup is supposed to be easy, and they're getting rid of those things. If you have like a vintage bike that friction shifts, you set your high limiting screw, you set your low limiting screw, you get your B tensioner screw right, and that's that. Then you're going to friction shift between those two lines. The other big deal that's supposed to be there is like, yeah, they're saying the durability. You're not going to break derailleur hangers and compatibility. So if you have this UDH, it's going to work well with every bike without a bunch of setup. And then the other big thing about this drivetrain is supposed to be, they're saying the harder you pedal and like shift under more load, actually the better the system acts. So, if you think of especially vintage bikes, but any group set, you let off the pedals a little bit as you shift. This is supposed to be a system where you don't have to do that. So I guess robust, easy setup, and that. But so those are supposed to be the big benefits, and everyone's saying setup. Like the people who have written it everyone's talking about that once you get used to the idea that you're supposed to pedal through shifts, that it becomes really amazing. And also it looks like the shifter is really intuitive and simple. We're all electronic here. So Dr. Bob said you would rather deal with a bent hanger than a bent mech, especially at the price they will be. Besides, it won't hit any of the, it won't fit on any of your current frames. I think that is one thing I do want to talk about a little bit in mountain biking world in general. We'll get to that. So got to still go through a couple comments first. Yeah, you're right, Michael. UDH is Universal Derailleur Hanger. So, hey, what's up, John? How's it going? Grand Subject says, sounds nice, but dang expensive. And then Large is saying the UDH is still a hanger, though. And they're like $16. So Large, it's a little piece that goes into your through axle slot, right? Because I've seen some pictures of it. Let me see. Maybe I could find I bet I can pull up a SRAM because I'm watching the videos where they're popping this little thing. It's real small though. It's not going to bend like a traditional hanger, right? That's when you talk about the issue. Okay, yeah, easy enough to see. So it's this tiny little. It is a derailleur hanger. So you're right. It is a derailleur hanger, right? But it only fits into bikes that are 2019 or later. It only fits into those through axles. Is that how that makes sense? Oh, thanks, Tony, for your text. So Jay Dandy said they'll come on new bikes, won't they? I'm guessing they won't be popular in the aftermarket initially. No, so unless, that's what I think is big in the cycling world of new bikes anyways, right? Like people aren't going out and buying this group set. There will be people, but that's a minority of people. Just like any group set when it gets announced, like it makes, the new Durace is going to come on new high-end road bikes, right? You're not going to go buy a new Durace group set and install it on your bike. That would be a rarity. Not that it never happens, but you know, shops are going to do that. Manufacturers are going to do that. So yeah, and with this one, it's not backwards compatible with like between what the chain, the derailleur, and the cassettes and the cranks aren't backwards compatible with any other SRAM stuff, right? Yeah, Dr. Bob. The high and low is still limited. You adjust it on the app. It's all done electronically. Oh, Danny, you've never even ridden a geared bike. Yeah, so this is all French to you. Yeah, it's all controlled through the app. Everything about the setup of this is controlled through your phone. The big advantage of the UDH system is supposed to be that the hanger, this little new hanger thing, is going to sit in the same spot on every single bike. So the adjustments won't be as big of a deal, anyways. Is kind of supposed to be the point, from what I understand, right? We got largest link here. There we go. Pudgy said, until you get on an older bike and break a chain, Shimano Di2 was similar and difficult to go from bike to bike once you got used to shifting under load. Huh. Hey, what's up, Racer? Yeah, and then also the chains are supposed to be the most robust chains ever. But did you guys see the prices of these chains? So I mean, yeah, that's one thing that's always going to be in the topic of conversation is breaking parts and like mountain bikers. I don't know. Like I said, I just picked up a stick and ripped my rear derailleur off my bike, not doing anything gnarly. So how much of an issue is that in the mountain biking world? Because yeah, your chain now is $150. Your derailleur is almost $600, right? Rock paper COVID said, "I like compatibility. So frustrating." So yeah, I guess going forward, this makes compatibility between different bikes easier, but there's no backwards compatibility with other SRAM stuff. So, Dirty River said UDH bikes take the hanger for other derailleurs, but it's direct mount for the new Eagle stuff. Okay, gotcha. So vaped, don't the nod, vape, don't the whatever. Uh, Said this is eliminating the UDH. And then Pudgy said, Dirty River Bicycle Works said it correctly. It's UDH, but a new hanger in the form of a breakaway connection. Alexa, how do I walk home? And then Ed Welker said the new cassette, yeah, is $400, and that's the cheap version of the new cassette. So they get lighter. There's three versions, right? Lighter and more expensive as you go up. Danny Smith said on the Jensen video, they pretty much said if you regularly break derailleurs, this is not for you. Oh, grand subject. No, no offense taken. Uh, Not at all. So I guess I would. We have definitely people who are good mountain bikers and like do some more serious mountain biking on this to follow this channel. One problem I have with the mountain biking world in general, like with the bikes, the high tech bikes, is it feels like everything is very expensive, but then it's also very disposable. So you look at all the, you know, full suspension bikes, and it's just like when this stuff breaks, it's either super expensive to get fixed or people just go and buy new ones. And so it's obviously a lot of people with big budgets in a way, throw away the sponsored people. That's always, I mean, don't throw them away. I mean, like, forget sponsored people. They're always going to be a different animal, like running the highest end SRAM, Shimano, whatever it is on road, mountain biking, and gravel. You're not paying for it. You're going to get upgraded to the latest. There's a mechanic who's going to fix it all for you, no matter how difficult or easy it is to work on. But for the high end enthusiast, whatever you want to call it, like the people who are really good at mountain biking, who are going out to Sedona and riding the hardest trails and stuff, who are buying these like kind of bikes, I just feel like, again, no backward compatibility. So, but they always, these trails get tougher and tougher, and people always want the newest and latest. And I just feel like so much of this stuff is so different than the idea of how, everyone's going around and buying up old 90s mountain bikes and then fixing them up and making them capable bikes for what they want to do. Whereas it just feels like, I don't know, let me know, are people going to buy the 2020 version of the latest specialized mountain bike and then want to be riding that bike? How many problems is it having with the suspension or the high-end electronic group set, which is now all it's going to run and so expensive to get upgraded? I guess that's kind of one of my problems, is like all this expensive stuff being manufactured in a little way just feels like future landfill, just like broken carbon for the most part is. But, I'm not going to, sit here and pretend like I'm perfect or talk everyone out of every carbon bike or anything like that. It just seems like so much of this tech is future trash where, I could run my 1975, old French bike and fix it up with parts that are still readily available and upgrade it, like take my 1982 Trek and put, 9-speed Shimano on it so I could still have drifters if I feel like I want that. Like as you guys know, I'm not a complete retro grouch. Like my gravel bike runs, I mean, modern-ish stuff. I want one bike that has some of the conveniences of modernity and stuff like that. So I'm not like someone who's like, everything has to always be old or has to be like, I hear like Ronnie talk about like he has a year range where he likes his stuff to all fall in that place. Like I'm not like on like hardcore on any end of the spectrum. I mean, my budget limits me on one end of the spectrum for sure. I just can't afford $10,000 bikes. I'm never, and yeah, it's not my bag anyways. But yeah, I'm just, I don't know. I'm curious to what people think about that idea of stuff getting so disposable in the biking world, which I felt like we were one of the last worlds for a while that were a holdout on disposable culture, But Danny Smith said, wonder how good the Chinese knockoff brands will be. Yeah, when does L2 putting out their version of this, right? Okay, so Dirty River, good. This is a good, interesting comment to me but the hanger part of UDH is removed to install the new derailleur, but the bike can have the hanger put in for any other derailleur. So I got that entirely. I understand what you mean. So yeah, people have been using these UDH style hangers to put on the mechs that are available now, and they'll use them in the future to install it and put on older mechs. But the new derailleur goes on without that little hanger piece. So gotcha. But you said road guys go for it, mountain bike guys maybe stick with the old school, CX guys quit eating paste. And Large Marge said the really good mountain bikers are on single speeds. It's in a lot of places where people mountain bike, they don't ride back up the hill anyways, right? They get on a chairlift or put it in a pickup truck or ride up a road. So
Gary Priest subscribed to the channel.
anyways, my pre-beer is done. Now it's time for the stream beer. Fathead's Bonehead Red, which is an Imperial Red Ale. double dry hopped. Really good. I had this on draft years ago, and it was one I saw it in the can, wanted to try again. But Dirty River said, have a machinist that will try and make a rear end for my salsa alternator dropout. That goes over my head. Tony asked if he gets a UDH bike and gets the Onheini Nivex, I can't remember how to pronounce it, Brazon. Can I run 2 derailleurs? Yeah. You'll have 2 direct mount rear derailleurs. Hey, what's up, Matt Ford? You said not sure who this is for. So I think it's for people who buy very high-end mountain bikes. I think the trickle down is going to be limited, but at some point you won't be able to buy a frame that is not set up like this, right? So that'll become an issue. Like Otis said, you could put in this UDH dropout for some older stuff. I'm curious how long this older stuff, even though electronically, is going to last. We'll see that too. So. Dirty River said wires will still work forever. They are future proof. Yeah. I think cables, replacing cables, right? The most future proof thing there is. Jay Dandy said, I think there will come a day when an electronic drivetrain will be a must have no brainer. I don't necessarily agree with that. I still think there's people like, when you're touring like crazy, you do really long tours, which isn't even me. Like, mine are like 5 days and mine aren't completely off the beaten path. I think being able to fix stuff roadside is really important. And when everything is electronic, there becomes a real problem there, Again, with these being the toughest chains ever, like, and this is just, I don't know, like someone else, Dirty River Otis, chime in on this. Like, if you do break one of these chains, are they a total pain in the ass to drop some links out and reattach? That's another good thing I like about 2x or 3x. When I was touring on a 3x and I broke a chain and took some links out, I'm just like very conscious of the idea of don't cross chain. You've shortened your chain, which I don't cross chain anyways, but I just made sure in my mind, like, after a long day of riding, like, be conscious of the idea that you're not still in the big ring when you start shifting in the other direction. So, yeah, I don't know. I haven't messed with the flat top SRAM chains on anything because I just don't run that. I just don't have those group sets. So, El Racer, we did have a good beer on your dollar on St. Patrick's Day. Me and Darrow were at Acronym Brewing, and we got a really smoky. It was a smoked beer, which I love. They taste almost like malty barbecue. They put like smoked malts under them, and that's the beer that I said we were having on your dollar. So I appreciate it. Eddie said the cost is so high and the benefits seem marginal, so you're not interested and you love new tech. Yeah, and I think the thing that becomes interesting is if they're saying it lasts as long as it does, which is better for the price, that the chains last so long and the cassettes last so long, and these new ramps and the cassette. For people who ride up and down on their mountain bikes, you're going down something, then you're cutting up. To be able to shift under load is great. I mean, even on gravel bikes, and like, if you watched my last video with like me and like Large Marge are doing at the end, where we're taking new trails we haven't necessarily been on, where like, maybe you turn a corner and all of a sudden you need to be in an easy gear. Like that kind of like, that's always kind of been a goal of like improving the tech on drivetrains, is being able to shift under more power. And in some situations that really matters. Is it worth a $600 derailleur and what were we saying the cassette costs $500? I think there's going to be people who say yes. I think a lot of people just buy new stuff and have money too, but Pudgy said, how long do you expect Shimano to make wires given they've already changed them? Yeah. Um, Eddie said, also, I think advantage Shimano targeting the lower end rather than this astronomical high end. Also, microshift. Shimano has always kind of run more of a spread than anyone, right? I mean, having stuff that goes on, what we call the Walmart bikes and stuff like that, and then still having super expensive electronic Dura-Ace and super expensive GRX stuff. But I think they are definitely with their new move targeting like a lower end, and they're planning, I think, decades out with that strategy. I mean, I think SRAM is planning for the high end decades out with this strategy as well. But that, yeah. Balancing Bike Life said, luckily bicycles are simple enough that they can't force this stuff down our throats like the auto industry does, for sure. Um, I always say that about the auto. Like, I was driving my girlfriend's car today. Long story, but I had my bike on the back, dropped it off to her, rode my bike home. Um, and it's, you know, the whole interface is basically an iPad, to do anything on there. And I hate that because when I used to buy used cars, like when I was younger, I wanted them to have roll up windows and non power locks because I know that stuff is unlikely to break. If it does, you could fix it yourself, or it's really cheap to get fixed. And I've always bought used cars because I don't want to drive really expensive cars. I want to buy them outright. I don't want to worry about where I park and all this stuff. And I don't want to worry about tech breaking. I'm thinking in 5 years already, like I won't be able to get a simple automobile. I'll have to get one of these things that are just computers on wheels. And I do not look forward to that day. I drive stick, you know what I mean? So, yeah. Yeah, and Pudgy said when you're touring in a third world country, I'm sure they'll have the wires at the ready with the eye roll thing. I think that is a big deal. I think that to what you were saying, Jay Dandy, I think for a lot of people, everything will become electronic and maybe lower end electronic group sets. Like, yeah, it's already trickling down to 105 in the Shimano world, even though that's still very pricey. You know, as tech moves on, it becomes cheaper and it can trickle down. But again, I think there's always going to be a want for something that is just mechanical and can just be dealt with and fixed in your yard. Like I said, like we are saying, that's the problem with cars, the way they've gone. Matt Ford said, if there are dudes still driving Packards now, there will always be people running mechanical. I think so. You know, there are new things, but that need to be made sometimes. But yeah, a lot of stuff can just be fixed up and replaced on mechanical stuff. So Dirty River said Microshift is doing the new basic part work. Shimano just made the new mid level. Racer said cycling about makes a great argument for belt drive. Yeah, I understand all the arguments for belt drive. I do. I think there are still arguments against belt drive, which is, internal geared systems, whether you want that or not. So if you need gears, I mean, belt drive single speeds seem to make a lot of sense too. So, and yeah, Dirty River talking about the new Shimano mid stuff. Yeah, it's not backwards compatible either, even though it's lower end mid level stuff, as you said. And then Eduardo said all these new components make you want to start buying and hoarding old components for your current bikes. Pathless Pedaled has made that argument a bunch of, you know, when you see something cheap, buy it. And I've started to feel that way with the vintage mountain bikes and all the parts I got and all the, you know, 8, 9 speed derailleurs that I have. I do feel that argument, hanging on to, you know, hanging on to stuff as backups and stuff that's cheap now. You know, like I said, I'm a big 9 speed Shimano fan for drop bar bikes, and you could go out and buy a lot of that stuff really affordable right now and have it as a backup. I'm sure there's plenty of new old stock pulley wheels out there and all that kind of stuff. So, Well, Racer, you're saying two opposing points. There's a way to shift under load when you back off the pressure ever so slightly. That's just not shifting under load. But the point of this is that you don't back off. Like, I mean, yeah, I mean, climbing a hill, you need to lose a gear, you slow it down over the top of the pedal stroke. To me, it's very easy. It's very intuitive. You get used to it, you get better at it over time. But that's not shifting under load. That's backing off and shifting while still moving fast. So. Dirty River said he's excited about Ingrid Components mechanical derailleurs that can talk with almost any shifter. We've looked up Ingrid on the stream too, but aren't those also like $700 derailleurs, right? Sleepy Holler, a microshift fan. And Large said Di2 ain't lower end. No, if I was misunderstood, if you're talking to the point I made earlier, that I think that will be trickling down in the future. How far in the future, I don't know. But yeah, I don't think 105 Di2, the new stuff, is lower end by any means. We might be mixing the new Q stuff from Shimano with Di2 in the conversation, or my poor delineation of the conversation. Danny said he likes bike packing, and with your belt drivetrain, there isn't much to go wrong, and you've racked tons of miles on it. True. But again, if something does go wrong, who can fix it? Or what do you do about getting it fixed? And not trying to talk you out of it. I'm just saying that is if something breaks in a planetary gear, what do you do with that? And just literally throwing this out there as a question, not as some kind of aggressive argument, Hey, what's up, Yenzer? Grant subject, you're a mechanic in a military K5 1977 Blazer with a diesel over 2,000. Anything Honda? God. Yeah, I've talked about this on before. Like, I had a Volkswagen that was a stick for a couple years. And even that being under the hood, how you couldn't even see anything without pulling out 1,000 layers of plastic. I couldn't change the oil myself in that car, just a Jetta. It was like an '06 Jetta, and it was already a pain. I can't remember the year. I only had it for a brief period of time. But, yeah, frustrating. My 85 Cavalier, I could change the alternator in that thing in 10 minutes. 2 adjustments. One little slider this way, tighten the bolt. One little slider this way. Belt's running straight. All good. Plug in the 2 wires. Yep. All right. I like that stuff. I know I'm starting to sound like an old grump, but like when it comes to like cars, I find modern cars, I think they're horrible. Yeah. Jay Danny said maybe SRAM and Shimano will become irrelevant as more and more regular cyclists enter the market. Yeah, I think like that's like what the micro shift and the Chinese brands will. If SRAM and Shimano keep going too high end and too proprietary, someone will fill the gap. We live in a world where that's not that hard to do anymore, for sure. And Dr. Bob was talking about loving the belt drive over regular chain. I totally get too for internal gearing, pinion gearing, all that kind of stuff for like your commuters and stuff like that is great. Your average bike tour is great. There still comes a point where I feel like you could run across serious problems if you're out, and you have a problem with that stuff. But someone could correct me if they think I'm totally wrong on that. So. James Enlow said, "You've recently made the switch to electronic shifting in your near lead. However, on long rides, you don't have to think much about shifting. No cross chaining, miss shifts, easy button shifting." I hear that. I mean, I've never been someone who's like anti-electronic shifting. I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to deal with I just don't want to deal with another set of something to charge on my bike. I rode, so the gunner I'm building up now, when I borrowed that from Otis last time, he had electronic SRAM shifting on it. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it didn't shift awesome. Like it did. It, but is it to a level that it doesn't really matter? Like my 11-speed Shimano and my 9-speed Shimano, mechanical shift get me through pretty much everything I need to do. Like when like Racer was saying earlier, like you let off a tiny bit of pressure and shift. So like I'm saying, I understand the goal of like if you own a company that makes tech, you're always going to try and make it better. And the shifting under load is like a, you know, the thing that is a pretty amazing. It's a pretty amazing thing to claim that can happen, you know, or to actually make it that way, which the bikepacking.com video pretty much said it is that way. So, price is a big deal to me, and future proofing is a big deal to me, and not just creating trash is a big deal to me. So when I talk about what SRAM's done here, I think what they've done here sounds all amazing. Like it sounds like they've come out with an amazing technical product, but there's other considerations that need to go into judging whether it's a good thing for cycling or not, in my opinion. So, let's see what else we got in the comments. Sleepy Howler said all in for gearboxes too. Uh, it's been really interesting. I don't know if you guys have been watching Pathless Pedal's live streams. The couple of the guests he's had on lately and listening to their opinions have fascinated me. And it just reminded me because a lot of these comments, but the last two frame builders and their opinions on a lot of the stuff. And uh, who was the one who was on with Ronnie also, who talking about Sklar bikes, like how he did high end, you know, full electronic builds for people and how he like thinks they're really cool. He doesn't run electronic on his bikes though. So, you know, there's a, and I'm not saying base everything on that, but it's just interesting to hear people who are in the industry selling frames that, you know, are the last guy whose frames I went to his website start at $2,500, $800 for paint. Absolutely stunningly beautiful bikes. And again, like, you know, has set FKTs and is still running some of the older technology. So it just, yeah, we're checking out all of those if you haven't. So Danny Smith says ABS brakes on bikes will be the next craze. Yeah, that's one thing I haven't gotten into yet with this new SRAM stuff. There are new brakes as well. So
Shannon McNeil subscribed to the channel.
thanks, Shannon. Appreciate you. But yeah. So I haven't looked at there's like a. I only read like a brief headline on the brakes, like a 4-piston type thing. But yeah. If no one buys electronic bike parts, the industry will stop making them. I think that's a big problem, though, Jay Bird. I think it's a lot like where tech is driven. We pretend like capitalism is all based on the consumer, where it's totally not. Like, in a lot of ways, like SUVs and trucks, if you watch that latest video, are like a perfect thing where there's different federal relation CAFE standards. So since they're classified as like, you know, they don't have to meet the same standards, they get marketed heavily and stuff like that. But also, if the bike manufacturers are putting this on new bikes and nothing else, your options become limited if you're trying to buy new, right? On what you can get. So if you want a high end bike now, in what, a couple years, no high end bike will have the availability of mechanical shifting on it. I'm not to say that there might not be some that could take it, but there's a lot of high end bikes that are only made to now run electronic shifting. So there could be a day where if you wanted something really nice and new from a major brand that you couldn't. That's why I'm saying I'm so glad that there's brands out there like, you know, Crust and, you know, Velo Orange and just so many of these brands, Soma, that I think are going to continue giving us the option to put mechanical stuff on there. Anyways, I keep saying I'm going to catch up on the comments and I keep ranting. Dirty River said, yeah, Ingrid is pretty big money, but someone else will make it. Yeah, I guess, you look at like what, you know, uh, Renaers has to charge for their derailleur just because specialized parts are expensive. So for someone to make something new, or like the problem with Rivendell, who's been trying to come out with like the that reverse pull rear derailleur, a reverse whatever spring tension rear derailleur forever. It's like getting like specific stuff manufactured is very expensive. So I don't know until the cost of that or the scale can go up. I think Russ on Pathless Pedal basically said how he would like Rivendell and Velo Orange and I don't know, maybe he said Renaers or whoever else to all get together and agree on a couple standards so we could scale up the manufacturing of mechanical uh, drivetrains and shifting and braking and all that kind of stuff. Would be awesome. Maybe that'll something along those lines of standardizing reverse compatible stuff will happen, or maybe we just keep buying used stuff. I don't know. I keep buying used stuff. Sorry, Racer. I wasn't dogging you. That's what, we're all debating, and I don't. And like I've always said, unless you get racist, homophobic, anti-trans, I don't take anything personally. If we disagree on tire width or bike components, it's just fun to. It's more fun to debate it than it is to sit here and pretend like everything's all good, right? Or we all agree on everything. It's not the case. I do think of that. I think of a $600 derailleur and how nice of a vintage bike I could get for $600 with a perfectly functioning. I would change the cables and the housings and the brake pads. And $600 have a really nice bike, even gravel capable bike. But yeah. And Jay Danny said a bike that works is fun, whether or not it's high or low tech. Yeah, I went last week on, the day before St. Patrick's Day. And St. Patrick's Day, I rode my top tube shifting Roger Riviera and had a blast. Friction shifting again. Hadn't ridden that kind of bike for a while, and I still had just a great day out. But Dr. Bob said, "Who knows? In the future, we can just implant a chip in the brain, so you just can shift by thinking about it." And speaking of internal gearing, so Racer said, "Well, if you have a roll off, you can just change the oil." Isn't that how pinion gearboxes work too? Don't you just change the oil every so often? I'm not sure. Dirty River said planetary gears are pretty inefficient, which stops it from taking over. Yinder said the best part of driving a stick, the longer he drives it, the fewer people who could steal it. That becomes truer and truer. I'm not someone who feels like everyone should know how to drive stick. I mean, I grew up maybe seeing like one stick car around like my family and friends group. It's just I've gotten old. The reason I really love, and I think this is what Dylan was saying last time, he feels more engaged, like shifting his bike friction. But with driving, you have to pay attention to what you're doing when you drive a stick. You cannot zone out on driving nearly as much as you can with an automatic. That's one of the reasons I like it. Um, Most of the other stuff that they talk about, the efficiency, I think automatics have gotten the computers probably smarter than you at being efficient. But I really do love the engagement where you're just not pushing a gas pedal on a 2,000-pound thing and spinning around looking at your phone and listening to your music. You have to have some level of engagement driving a stick. You think about the hill you're stopping on, whatever. Personal opinion. I don't think everyone needs to drive sticks or learn how to drive them. I love driving them, and Racer, to your point, mine is a Toyota. And mine's a Matrix, and it's got 100,000 miles on it. So you understand prices through 80s Land Cruiser are through. Yeah, for sure. Oh, the Racer said Porsche went back to making manual transmission cars. I did not know that. Because even high-end cars that used to are race fast cars used to have a stick so you could shift, but then everything went to the paddle shifters where you weren't using a clutch anymore, right? So Eduardo said planned obsolescence has hit the cycling world. Um, I'd say kind of. When you say planned obsolescence on the scale like GM and Ford were doing it, that was like completely malicious, horrible stuff. I don't. I would give like SRAM the benefit of the doubt on the idea that they're not thinking like we're making you buy this so it just gets trashed and you have to buy it again. I'd give them the benefit of the doubt on they do think they're pushing the best product they've ever made and it's supposed to last, but is planned is it's I think it's just obsolescence less than planned or malicious obsolescence, which is maybe a term I'm just coining right now. So Tony was saying, in your experience, 7 and 9 speed microshift make solid components. Um, you don't feel like you see them in the wild as much as Sensa. I think microshift is a lot like in the photography world. There were these third-party lens makers like Sigma and stuff like that, and they used to be like, you bought this if you just can't afford the lens you need. And now they've like the manufacturing overseas and stuff like that for higher tech stuff has caught up. And now like I buy Sigma lenses because they're like they could be like a one I need could be like $1,000 to $2,000 less than the Canon equivalent, and the quality is on par. And I think that's kind of what's happened with Microshift is they've been really able to up their game in the mechanical world. I haven't heard anyone say on par with like Shimano, but you're still the amount of money you're saving. I think becoming good enough and better than maybe even some used stuff. So you're getting to 9-speed microshift where it might be better than your 105 that's 10 years old, right? Sam Diaz said Tim is a SRAMmy now. Nah, I just figured I'd hit the hot topic tonight. Why not? I figured everyone's been looking at it all day and would have stuff to say about it. Yeah, I still don't own any SRAM. Uh, and in the picture, I think I have that just because it's a 9-speed SRAM cassette that I bought for something that works with my 9-speed Shimano drivetrain. Where'd I put the box? I don't even know what it is. Oh, an 11 to 32 8-speed cassette. So, yeah, this went on something of mine. So, but it was also $24. So this is the world of affordable SRAM stuff. Otis probably knows what I put this on, or Large does. It's also made in Taiwan for everyone who always says SRAM's American made. And they don't make all their stuff in America, you liars. It says made in Taiwan right on the box.
Brandon Doherty subscribed to the channel.
Charles, what's up? Oh.
Sean Richards subscribed to the channel.
Thanks, guys. As the channel, this sounds super cocky, but it's just true. As the channel gets bigger, I might have to turn off that notification because the simple fact is those come through a lot faster these days. So thanks, everyone. But Charles Foster Kane said, problem solved. Pinion has a tandem setup, and the service mechanic rides on the secondary seat in case of a breakdown. Love that. Yinder said sometimes, and it seems like Shimano and SRAM are ignoring that cyclical nature of cycling that Pathless Pedal brought up. I bet if they came out with new throwback tech, people would buy it. And I think you're proved right there by like, I think like the cooler looking cranksets and cranksets like White Industries and all that stuff is the reason Shimano put out the Silver GRX that so many people, like even me, I look at that, I'm like, man, if I had to buy it, I'd buy the Silver GRX any day. So in a way they do see what's happening, but getting something in silver is the best they're going to offer us, I think. So Grand Subject said, "You just want to ride bikes with us? We can give you a Huffy and you'll be happy to be outside." And that is true. That is how I'm. Like I said, when I got back into cycling, uh, that's how all me and my friends were. It was just we are just people who want to ride outside. Uh, this would be a boring live stream if I just said, "Yeah, we should all just ride," and then I just stood here. So, but I'm nerdy about anything I get into. So I do follow the stuff. It's unlikely I'll ever own this stuff, and like I said, I'm not putting it down. I'm not building it up. But it's industry news that's totally worth talking about. So. TRP is making a 12-speed mechanical group set. A couple of you guys were saying that. Wow. I'll be interested to see if it's as bad as their brakes. Sorry, Pudgy, you knew I had to say that. So, hey, what's up, JMZ? JMZ said someday they will make a two-wheel bike that you don't have to pedal with a picture of a motorcycle or an e-bike. Yeah. Jaybird, yeah, to your point, like where I was saying, it's absolutely consumerism. Pick and choose what you want to support. I wholeheartedly believe that on the personal level. I do. Like I answer comments in the YouTube all the time where someone's like, "That bag's way too expensive. I could just get that cheap thing off Amazon," and I'm like, "You can." One, it's probably not going to be at the same quality or last. Two, who do you want to support with your dollars? Like, I do believe in like voting with my dollars on that consumerism level, but to act like the deck is not stacked in the corporations over the consumer at this point in, as everyone calls it, late stage capitalism would not be true. So it is both ways. Like we can vote with our dollars. I choose to vote with my dollars. I also choose to, recycle, but on the grand scheme of things, compared to what, a major coal power plant does my environmentalism really matter? I don't do it for that reason. I do it because it's the right thing to do. So that's just my, my my take. Hey, what's up, Scott? Greetings from Vermont. Welcome. Glad you're jumping in. The more, the merrier. Can I get to the bottom of the comments? That's the real challenge. Because this is one where I wanted everyone's opinion too, so I do want to see what everyone has to say. James Enlow said his favorite Star Trek quote, "If there is to be a brave new world, our generation is going to have the hardest time living in it." Very true. Reliable Waste has a good comment here. If I asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Henry Ford. True. Like innovation does come from visionaries who are changing things. The thing is, we're still talking about bikes. SRAM didn't come out with a not bike, right? But I do understand that point. Henry Ford is also a Nazi, but oh, nice. Scott and Pudgy, you guys are old friends from way back. Sweet. Large has just gone back to single speed. I'm not advocating going back to single speed. I have my single speed commuter that I like, but I'm a geared guy everywhere else. Yinder said with coaster brakes. Got you. Yeah, Racer said, and yeah, now people are paying a premium for manual transmission cars. They're becoming rare. Steven Marino said, the thing you can't stand is frames that don't have the option to route traditional mechanical derailleurs. Agree 100%. 100%. That's what I was saying, I guess, to the point I was making earlier, is if major bike companies don't make frames that can take the old stuff, your consumerism, yeah. Like I said, I'm going to vote with, buying a Crust or a Velo Orange if I usually buy used, but if I was buying a new bike, I would go with, and I'm just naming two of the brands. There's a lot. There's a lot of smaller brands and custom frame builders. I'm gonna go with the people who are gonna make bikes that can be compatible with other stuff, But I wouldn't be, as you guys could probably tell from the channel, the guy in the market for the new Cannondale, Specialized, Pinarello, anyways. So Yinder said, from a business standpoint, unproven observation would suggest that one person buying an extremely expensive group set creates more profit than 10 people buying cheap group sets. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Like Microshift, like what are their margins? Maybe they're actually really high. Like L2, are their margins really high because they're making that stuff so cheap? Come in $100 under SRAM and Shimano, or $200 is I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't know. You could be right. Scale makes things really cheap though. Like so, if you could scale things up, you could really save a lot of money. So, just depends. I mean, your White Industries and Chris King and Paul components are so expensive because they're made in one small shop with a couple machines and employees getting living wages. So I don't know. They don't have the scale, right? Juice Camp. Racer, I like this comment. Part of the bike owner builder evolution for you has been managing and reducing expectations for a bike and appreciating the older tech after having new stuff. I would totally agree with that. I was saying this one night, like I had first built up my couple, I think I might have only been one, where I took an old frame and put brifters on it. And I was having a New Year's party over here with my bike friends, so pre-pandemic. And my one friend, Ryan Berge, he looked at my bike with the brifters and he said, "You're not going to ride your vintage bikes as much anymore." And I was like, "Yeah, Will. I mean, like my Peugeot is my baby. I'm attached at the hip." And he's right. Like I still ride all my bikes occasionally, but I get on my gravel bike rally with 11-speed Shimano. It's mechanical. Like I said, this is not the craziest, and I've broken stuff, I've fixed it up, but I do like riding like that a lot too. So I just don't know if it's going to get up to the level of having to have electronic or anything like that. So Sean Anderson, what's up? Yeah, the channel went over 10K. I can't believe it. So thanks. Yeah, literally, like I said at the end of that video, if anyone watched, I couldn't believe when it hit 1,000 and was eligible for monetization. I'm like, this is ridiculous. But yeah, Scott, Pudgy is one of the OGs here. Started live streaming a long time ago, a couple years ago, like you said. I mean, Sam Diaz said spires definitely suck. So sorry if you're in this live stream and it was a comment on someone made a comment on an older video where I talked about my spires, and they said like TRP spires are great brakes, and I was like, just even in like bringing up Pathless Pedal again, he called them the totally acceptable brake, and mine sucked. Like they could have been worn out. Like I said, they probably had whatever 15,000 miles on them. Fine, but I've never heard anyone try and argue that spires are great brakes. Like acceptable, fine, I'll live with that. Like mine were bad at the point. Mine were already used too. So, but great brakes, no, no, no way. Not by they weren't great new. Otis had them new. Otis is in here. That's where I got the bike from. He said new they weren't that great. He said they were the same level as decent rim brakes. So, anyways, Danny Smith said need a bike swap meetup. So we're talking about scheduling one of those with Dirty River. I think the problem with this stream is we're all over the place, but yep, in Akron we're talking about doing it. And Dr. Bob was talking about mixing up group sets and an older group sets still working and being compatible for sure. Jay Danny says, I think we need a map to see where this factory where the new SRAM stuff is being manufactured. Thanks, Racer. I appreciate the comment. Uh, yeah, I think there is a Midwestern, uh, yeah, quality in that a lot of people kind of gravitate towards. I don't know, however you would say that. So, Jay Danny said we need a good map session for the noobs. I, I think maybe we'll save the maybe map section will be next Tuesday. We'll get hard into the maps. Dr. Bob said you could say I was born Shimano, but I identify with SRAM, and your pronouns could be micro shift. However you're trying to say it. Yep. I just think for drop bar mechanical, Shimano's the best. So that doesn't mean they're the best like electronic shifting. I haven't compared them. That doesn't mean they're the best flat bar company. What?
RacerX84107112 super chatted $10 to 10,000 subs. Your next beer's on me. And hey man, you've got a killer vibe here. Love it.
Thanks so much, Racer. I truly appreciate that. Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to argue this versus that in tons of situation, but drop bar mechanical, I will die on the hill. Shimano makes drop bar mechanical the best. Thanks again, Racer. I do appreciate it. Muskrat said, I welcome new innovation as long as someone keeps making basic quality bikes, and they will. Out of all the options available, the internal belt drive would be the one you would like to try. And I agree with that too. Like, I like seeing the new innovation. I'm interested in it. I read about it. We're talking about it. And I do think that we do have the brands that are going to keep trying to make the basic stuff. We do need like the group set stuff though. So yes, the micro shifts or whoever, or like I said, if find a coalition of American manufacturers to keep up simple group sets for the bikes we like. But I do, and I said that early on when people were freaking out about UCI having gravel world championships and like now everything's going to go to racing. And I'm like, yeah, but the brands I don't buy anyways, like, you know, so we still will have the brands we care about, you know, the bomb tracks, the Rivendels, you know, Rivendels. JMZ said your knees can't handle single speed. Yeah, and the hills around here for me, but Racer said you could see the bikes going the way of Porsche. They are all new tech, but most people don't really want it. Yeah. Then again, we've seen how many bikes Racer has. And Pudgy, back to the 10,000, said, you remember the 1,000 party. Think I might even remember the 100. Yeah, the 100 sub stream for sure. Muppet is a great insult, too. It's up there with Pinecone. I like that, Pudgy. Yinder said, Tim, your channel was originally a YouTube recommendation based on your interest in pathless pedal. The algorithm is kicking it well for you. Yeah, and it really has, the algorithm really has, like, it's all, you know, it's fair. It just finds what people like, but it has definitely uh, started to, like, highlight that as my kind of audience because I could look at the back end of where the recommendations and what other, so, like, what you guys watch, not by name, but as a group, and it is, like number one is usually pathless pedal, then, a lot of decline, decent amount of Terry B. I love Terry B. I think we have less crossover in content, more maybe some crossover in style. I don't know. Tony said 10 p.m. baby, time to get hard in the maps as I put it. All right. All right. Can I catch up? Oh, Reliable Waste asked if I've ever tried Campy. So I have 10-speed Senchar on my vintage carbon look, which is like that close to ever being done. And I hurt my back. And so like having a slammed, fairly skinny tired road bike is something I haven't completed. It's something I've actually been thinking a lot. It would be good video content, but also just I have this like cool thing hanging on the wall with all these cool parts because it has these really cool Tour de France branded Mavic Consumerism wheels that are machined out with the big flat arrow spokes, and it's one of those things I'm looking at, and it's like, should I pull that campy group set and those wheels and put them onto something way more practical for the way I ride? So the answer is no, I've not really tried Campy, but I do have a Campy group set. Can't you? Oh, it used to be in the background. Oh, it's right there, but it's out of focus above the area around some of the boxes. But Danny said bikes are similar to cars, as in the old ones are cool and the new ones are too. You'd love to ride a vintage bike, yeah. That's awesome, Pudgy. Pudgy said, crazy to meet an old friend from Vermont on here nearly 20 years later. Hell yeah. But have I ever tried Zeus? No, isn't that what we were... Pudgy, is that... Oh, were you standing there? I was standing there with Yellowbird. The one guy at Nutmeg had a bunch of bikes for sale, and one was a Zeus. But... Scott, you said you've been interested in Ohio even before discovering the channel. Oh, awesome. Yeah. And I've been to Vermont once, Brattleboro, and hiked around there and stuff like that. Wasn't bike riding a lot. I was riding a lot at that time, but not in the way where like now I would not go somewhere like that without my bike. So I did a lot of hiking with a friend there, right on the New Hampshire-Vermont border. It was beautiful. We were there in the late summer. Leaves hadn't changed yet. Everything was green. Racer said, hey, as long as there are old mountain bikes and hybrid frames around, you could build a great bike out of it, those old clunkers. For sure, I totally agree. I came up with a new idea for one of these vintage mountain bikes that's going to be interesting, and maybe we'll talk about it on a lot. I don't want to, till I get my idea a little better organized, but it'll either be a video for the channel or a live stream where we all like work on it together. Eduardo asked for my thoughts on the Brooksby 17. For anyone new, there's a new rule that these streams just always fall back on saddles, which is because it's an important topic, but also a little bit useless in a way because they're so personal and we always get into it and I always get going on it. And yeah, anyone who's been hanging around for a while does not need to hear my saddle thoughts anymore. Reliable Waste said, please don't die on that Shimano Cross until you try it. You're a huge fan of anything XT for off-road adventure. Yeah, Zeus is the Spanish group set, but they also made frames, right? I'll pull them up in a minute here. All right, good night, Otis. Have a good night. Thanks for hopping in. Large Marge said, careful, Eduardo, he's got banning privileges. Yeah, Large Marge is a moderator. Too much saddle talk, he could cut you off. Uh, Pudgy said, "Campy talk isn't the kind of talk we do in these parts." Well, it's funny because the vintage campy stuff too is so popular with like the whole East Coast contingent, the Ron, Ultra Dynamico type crowd, right? So I just don't come across it, or if you do, it's so expensive. Even vintage, you know. To make my camera analogy again, it's like the Leica stuff. You just don't run across cheap Leicas. They're all expensive, even broken. So. Racer said Brooks is like the stairway of heaven of this chat. I've been so Albert has our friend AJ, who's been around a while, has been on the stream a number of times. He got a Speedwagon built up and it has the Campy Ekar on it, and he was still in the learning curve of using it when asked him about it. But now that he's had a little bit more time with it, I'll be real curious to see what he thinks of it. So, talking about actual new Campy, yeah. And then I guess we also have Pudgy Lanky, who's on channel member who is a campy aficionado. He's a big Italian bike fan though, as well. Pudgy said if there are Zeus frames, he thinks there's someone else. I think they're Spanish though, so that'd be a coincidence. Campy invented the derailleur, and Campy invented what, the parallelogram derailleur, but their biggest invention is the quick release. That's their first major innovation was quick release hubs. Or yeah, you know what I mean. This isn't GCN. You want your money back? Uh, Tony asked if I've ever reached out to Russ, Terry B, or Decline, or anyone else about being on the stream sometime. I've got 70 freaks in here talking about standards. I, the standard idea on YouTube is you reach out to people in your range. Yeah, I don't. Me and Terry could have an interesting conversation because he jumps in this stream and I'm always in his streams too. He's a full-on SRAM guy. He thinks GRX is garbage and all that stuff. I don't have a relationship with Decline really, except I've typed in his streams a little bit and I've commented on his videos. He jumped in this stream actually last Thursday, right at the end, unfortunately. And Russ has mentioned me before, but I don't know. I feel like I don't know. The benefits to them are less. Like, right? Everybody who follows this channel already follows Russ. So we can't really help him out that much, right? Danny asked if I could have any vintage bike, what would we have? We did a lot of these kind of conversations early on in the streams. I would still say I think my two, like if it was going to be a road bike, pure road bike, I really like the 711 era Sorotas that were branded as Huffies. I love that paint job. Sorota, major awesome frame builder and stuff like that. And I really like the orange Eddie Mercs that were made by Calnago. I would say like any vintage bike, just like to cruise around on, like keep really nice and pristine. As a road bike, those would be the two. Any more, like if I say any vintage bike, I want something that's more rideable, and so I would want something with wider tires that was capable of doing more. But if I could just have any vintage bike as like a beautiful piece of art that I'd also just ride around to like chill stuff, those would be the two. So Racer said, "Campy, I invented. I don't want to play with you." Campy is Italian for "Do you even cycle, bro?" Campy invented "You have to buy new tools most years." Uh, yeah, Pudgy, it is crazy that you don't follow any of them. What's up, Dimitri? Welcome. This channel seems more grassroots. Yeah, I would. I think Pathless Pedal still does a lot of cool stuff. I still really like watching it. And DK, my main thing is I like watching his rides and his editing style. Um, I would say his Vice isn't as relevant to me personally, but I don't think it makes it bad or anything like that. I mean, there's just a lot of niches to fill out there in the cycling world. But yeah, I really do like. I like when Decline goes for a ride with his friends. I like that he's is willing to talk to him. The whole ask me about your bike stuff. I love like seeing what everyone's on because he rides with a real mix of people. But yeah, I hear you. I just don't want to knock either of those guys because I actually still really like them, even for like little nitpicks that I might have as a bike nerd. So Dimitri just asked if I talked about Brooks saddles yet. Hey, Large just said he has banning power, so you need to be careful. So Racer said high end is for racers or people who do really challenging stuff. Maybe you don't have to necessarily be a racer to want high end. I don't know. I have a lot of friends who like buying, like quality stuff and don't mind spending the money on it. But then again, they're usually going to more of the boutique brands, like I've already mentioned the White Industries, the Paul Components, stuff like that. But Arjun, what's up? Uh, said love Sorotas. Was lucky to work at the shop that at one time sold the most of them, City Cycles in San Francisco. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I was really it was really cool to see a bunch of them at King Kong in Brooklyn. He's a big Zip collector, but they also had a bunch of Sorotas in there. I think they even have on the cap that I bought there. Don't they even have a Sorota logo? I'm gonna grab it because I'm looking at it hanging on my pegboard right there. Yeah, they do. I didn't ever get to ask what the relationship was, um, but yeah, there is a Sorota logo on the King Kong from Brooklyn cap. Danny said, "Who would win a bike race, Pudgy or Tim?" We're talking to the pub, not Walmart. Uh, if the pub is up a hill, I know I could beat Pudgy. I'm definitely a faster climber, but that's about all I would bet on. If it was, you know, if it's over 300 feet in elevation or higher, I know I could take him. And he wouldn't argue with that, I guarantee it. Right? Not drunk, just primed. And then Pudgy said, "Drunk, you'll win because you'll just throw me somewhere." Oh yeah, I love these. Yeah, I was looking for a couple little things to buy at that shop. The owner was still there, and he was friendly as hell. Gave us a great pizza recommendation, which we took him up on. So, photo of the Dream 7-Eleven. Uh, I'll look at it again. I love them. Oh, this is so I forgot they had two different eras, so it'd be hard to choose. This is, oh wait, wrong way. They also had an Eddie Merckx. Can I make this full screen? Yeah, there we go. So Team 7-Eleven wrote Sorotas that were branded as Huffies and Murrays one year, and they also rode these beautiful Eddie Merckxes the one year. So yeah, this one is decked out in Dura-Ace, and the Merckx is Columbus SLX tubing, if I remember correctly. But I love that paint job. So that's later stuff. Let's see if I type in Team 7-Eleven and then Huffy. Huh. There should be one with almost that exact same paint scheme, but I'm not seeing it. Camera just froze. Oh, good. It came back. Muskrat said the Le Mans Pop Rat in orange. Large said those just look uncomfortable. Oh yeah, Racer. So the Sirota 7-Elevens were just branded as Huffies, but they weren't. Huffy sponsored the team, and they hired Sirota to build them. Yeah, look at the other one I mentioned was the whoops. Sorry about that. Clicking on the wrong stuff. Like I said, this is an 8% beer. Yeah, open it. Open the picture. This would be the Merckx Colnago I was talking about. Yeah, this one's going to be campy. I would almost guarantee it. Look at that Drillium crankset. Oh, this is actually an Eddie Merckx. This isn't the Colnago, I don't think. It could still be Colnago made depending on what year it is. Jay Danny said, pull up a map of Boston, Spa, New York. I'm trying to highlight this so I don't have to retype it. So you said Sirota had a shop here? Is that what you said, Jay Dandy? Oh, that's where you think he has a shop now. And you used to live here. Let's see where we are in New York. Oh, it's south of Saratoga Springs. Oh, north of Albany. Okay, so this would be along the Empire Trail probably, huh? By Schenectady. Arjan said, you got to visit the Sirota factory back in the early 2000s. That place was state of the art. Nice. Walston Spa sounds like a happy ending place. Oh, and Arjan said they used to be in Saratoga Springs, so that makes sense because that is right by there. Yeah. Or I know I missed a couple comments in here. Grand Subject said, "Hope one day you can own a vintage steel is real with the race plate holder on the front of the top tube." Oh yeah, yeah. To get like an actual pro bike they made some that had the number holders that they did sell to the general public, and now there's plenty of reproductions like that. But that's not what you're talking about. Uh, Racer said you have an article from an old bicycle guide magazine about Drillium. The parts don't bend, they break. For anyone who doesn't know what we were talking about, when I had that picture up of, was it the Mercs with the Drillium crank? Yeah. So, oh, I don't have it on the screen. Hang on. Some were manufactured and some are manufactured now. Velo Orange makes a cool crankset that has this vibe. But back in the day, uh, bike mechanics and racers would drill out parts like this, like your crankset and stuff like that, to make them lighter. And that's where I don't know where the actual drillium, if it's who coined it or whatever, but that's what we're referring to. Uh, it's actually what has led, they were so dangerous that they're illegal to race on anything that's modified like that now. So if you don't know, the UCI has a rule that everything pros race on, the sponsored gear, has to be available to the general public. So the safeguard is against someone doing this to try and make their bike extra light or doing weird mods to make it extra aero and stuff like that. So really interesting, really cool stuff when you see it. You just said, wonder if changing the stems, bars, hoods on that Mercs would push the speed up bit, just based on body form, putting the power down. Blasphemy, you know. I know. I just got a comment about my how I used to bike pack on my vintage Trek, and I said how it was just too unstable because it's not a touring bike. The stays aren't long enough. And someone talked about how I could modify the bar position and all that to make it better for touring. And it's just such a cool looking bike. I just couldn't bring myself to put a modded, the stem conversion from threadless on there and all that stuff. And I'm like, no, it's just not a good bike for touring. I'm gonna leave it as it is and ride it for a different purpose. But yeah. So, like you were saying, that Mercs, would you would you adjust it if you owned a bike like that, or would you just go with it? I don't. I'm not a big fan of just wall hanger museum pieces too, though. I mean, I believe bikes are meant to be ridden. So, Jay Dandy said, zoom in on the downtown in Boston, and we think we'll see his. Let's see. I mean, what's it next to? Is it next to Miscellanea Alana, Midtown Wine and Spirits? They got a Speckled Pig Brewing. I could also just type it in, right? There we go. Let's get some satellite footage of it. Oh, bicycle shop. Nice. Okay, so this is more of a store than like a custom frame shop. Danny Smith, losing weight is always the easiest way to take weight off your bike. You're the most heavy thing in the equation, right? Arjuan said, what size Sirota would I want? Well, if I was going to make it real racy, I'd probably get a 58. Uh, yeah, I think I'd go 58 on a Sirota, right? I could fit a 60, but, you know, you want to slam it a little bit. And Tony said, Drillium, I hardly know him. Dr. Bob said, early 70s as a teenager, your local bike shop was Schwinn. Dreamed about high-end bikes with Campy, but couldn't afford them. Did end up buying a nice Super Sport, though. Nice. Pudgy said, if someone told me to modify your 86 fan chance, you'd tell them to kick rocks. Yeah, I hear you. Miscellanea Alana sounds like a lady friend of yours, Pudgy. Oh, number 22 bikes is also there. Some Sirota folks went there. I didn't know that's where number 22 was. I wouldn't be as familiar with number 22 if it wasn't for Terry B. He rides that number 22 Drifter as his gravel bike. Matt Ford said, finally some hot maps action. Hey, what's up, Master of Disaster? You thought Tim was going to order not a hat. I wouldn't order a hat. There is a hat there, but I'm a cap guy. They got any caps? I'm not a kit guy either. I don't wear road riding gear. Yeah, really? They're just baseball hats at a cycling shop? Come on, Sirota. Ride the shit out of that. All right. Someone said they dropped something in the Discord. Let's check that out. Drillium. Wait, what channel did you drop that in, Racer? It's not showing up to me for some reason. Bike pics. Huh, I can't see it. Did I just do something weird? Let me reload the page. It's not showing me anything new. I'm seeing Dylan's bike from his ride today. Yeah, Dylan was saying spring. Yeah, it got up to 55 today. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to ride. Well, I rode home from errands, but didn't have a chance to just do a fun ride. Someone told me, Pudgy, today that from my last video where I'm talking to the camera, that my helmet was too far back and I shouldn't wear caps with brims under them. So I held back from saying I'd give up my helmet before I gave up my bike cap, but I've actually, so bouncing bike life, you said, and Pudgy app asked, but it's bicycling caps, not hats, anyways. But are bicycling caps just for looks since the bill is too short to block any sun? I've tried to look up the history and I haven't really found like why they have the look they do. I mean, one thing is they fit under the helmet really well, but yeah, I don't know if part of it is supposed to be the adjustability of the peak, but it still blocks sun. To say it doesn't block any sun, I mean, you know, baseball players put like our football players put black under their eyes because it absorbs sun rays. So, yeah, a cap blocks sun, wind, and I think it was rain was one of the things too. Originally, that they would look down, and so you're keeping some of the rain out of your eyes. But yeah, I don't know. All right, do you guys want to see my hat head? That no hat head is only on the OnlyFans. My OnlyFans subscribers are going to get mad about that. What are they paying for? Oh, there we go. Nice. Oh yeah, look at the Drillium levers. Yeah, drilling all down. Oh, and the front derailleurs, the shifters. That rear derailleur one is nuts. I don't know how well this comes out on the stream, but if you're in the Discord, you could open up. Oh, open in browser. I missed that. There we go. That's pretty sweet. Drillium hubs. I love the levers. That yeah, that's amazing. What was the other? Oh yeah, I'm gonna zoom in on this and read about it later. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, that peace sign in there, racer, is freaking wild. It's after 10. I guess I could have just said effing. Hey, what's up, Paul? No, I haven't built up the specialized yet. I did a little bit of playing around with the parts on one of the live streams, but just yeah, been busy. I'm also waiting for a couple contacts and a couple uh, things we're going to work on to come through to finish that. So it's kind of moved down the priority list, but we will. We'll do it on the streams, and I'll make sure everyone knows about it. Jay Dandy said I would not use that, but it is beautiful. Yeah. Eduardo said Sun Tour made high-end components. Yeah, Sun Tour made some great stuff. I have a ton of mid-level Sun Tour stuff around here. Um, yeah, it's pretty cool, Racer. 1040. I'm actually going to get up out of here. Yeah, I want to sit down, but this is a fun chat. Like I said, I wanted to hear what people had to say about the SRAM. I knew with this group in general, people would find no reverse compatibility being annoying, the price being annoying, but also the innovation to be interesting, right? Or the tech to be interesting. So it's fun to talk about, and that it's fun to get into all the other goofy topics we always get into. I like that idea of sticking to a topic for a while and then letting the conversation go run a little wild. So, yeah, great night. Love chatting with you guys all. Thanks again for all the support. Like, I really can't believe it, and I can't even believe I get to lead conversations like this every week. It's so much fun. Like I've always said, I've always learned more from you guys than I think I could ever teach anyone. So, all right. Later, Tony. Later, everyone. Pudgy, Yinzer. Cheers, Racer. Yeah.
See myself on your YouTube.
Okay, bye.
All right.
Cause
Yeah.
this time I'm just kidding.
Fitzwater photo.